Good morning all. Thank you for taking the time to be here in this webinar session. Today we are having a topic on ingredients of successful SaaS business. SaaS has been in existence for more than a decade and it has completely transformed the way software is built and delivered. As Gartner rightly predicted, SaaS has pretty much moved from the hype cycle to the plateau of productivity. And today, every single software is aimed towards built as a SaaS model. Now, while there are several SaaS companies that are keen in terms of making the software, some of them focus on the horizontal related software, and some have already started building very complex softwares like ERPs and things like that on the SaaS model. But regardless of the nature of product that is being built, the success of a SaaS business also depends on factors that are much beyond the product itself. So in this particular webinar, we are going to be discussing about those ingredients, those factors that could be crucial towards ensuring an overall success of the SaaS business and not just the product. So with that, let me get started. A couple of instructions. All phones are mute, so please feel free to post your questions in the questions box that you see on your window. We'll have a Q&A session in the end, and we'll try to answer as much as we can. And in the case of lack of time, we'll ensure that we provide you an email response to the queries you are posting. So for today's session, we will be focusing on some of the key aspects related to a SaaS life cycle. So what exactly does a SaaS life cycle constitute of? What are the major phases involved in it? And also more importantly, the various challenges that are typically encountered by ISVs, by SaaS companies, and what kind of solutions could be applied towards overcoming those challenges. That will be the first part of the session. And the second part of it, I'm going to show you a high-level demo of an application, a platform that can help in terms of overcoming some of these challenges that we are going to discuss in the first half of the session. I'm Janaki Jayachandran. I'm the technology director of Texello, a cloud-based SaaS platform. So I've been working with several of SaaS customers in helping them towards enablement of their SaaS solutions and development of new SaaS products. So today's session is more of the experience that we have been having with some of these customers and the knowledge we have gained over a period of time. So let's get started with the key factors that are critical in a SaaS business model. There are four important areas that one has to realize, which are very critical from a success factor perspective. First one is a scale. SaaS is all about scale. So you have to expect more customers. You should work towards getting more customers because the very fact that it's going to be on a recurring basis, your system should be designed in the mind that you are going to get more customers. And not just getting the customers, but also retaining them is extremely important. And as you might have seen, the churn of SaaS is quite high, given the nature of the fluidity in terms of the subscription-based business model. It's very important to have as less churn as possible. That way you can focus on adding more customers and growing the SaaS revenues. The revenue itself is going to be a key factor, and in today's competitive world, the ISVs have to be innovative in the way they come up with their pricing plans and see how they can provide something that is attractive to the customer, that meets the budgets of the customer, and also is more applicable and more user-friendly from a costing perspective. So the need for being able to have different pricing models and the flexibility to operate maybe under more than one pricing model might also be an important factor to consider. The infrastructure part is again another big challenge, particularly companies moving from the typical on-premise to the SaaS model. This is an area that's going to be very vital because this could be new for them. Now the ISVs are responsible for both the hardware and software, so there has to be additional factors to be taken into consideration, particularly around the security and availability of the SaaS software itself. The last part is the operations, which is an ongoing day-to-day work, because once you get a customer, as we saw, retaining a customer is to ensure that the customer gets the value from the product. And to that extent, you should be able to meet the SLAs that are being promised. And in some cases, there are very stringent SLAs, and downtimes can have a very major impact for the customer, which in turn could have a serious impact on the SaaS business itself. So that's on the operations front. So with that in mind, let's also get a perspective of the SaaS life cycle and how it kind of moves around from an ISV perspective. So this cycle here indicates the major phases, steps involved on a typical SaaS life cycle model. So it starts with the subscription. Now all along we are assuming that you have a product, or you are building a product. But then once you have the product in place, you should be able to offer different subscriptions to your customers and have them probably self-subscribe and be able to sign up and start using the product ideally. So as part of that, you should be able to onboard customers. That requires ensuring the customer's configuration is set properly. So this is where your implementation phase kind of comes into picture. And in SaaS, the implementation has to be as fast as possible. And to the extent possible, it also should be self-servicing kind of a model where customers can do most of the things by themselves. And there is a whole security setup that comes into picture, because the requirements of customers could vary from one customer to another customer. So you should be able to flexibly accommodate those requirements and be able to set the required security in terms of what the customer and the users can access. And the complete user management has to be set up. And the various roles have to be created, and the privileges of the roles have to be defined. And again, here things could vary from customer to customer. So you might have to be ensuring that the proper privileges are set for each of the users according to the customer requirements. And on an ongoing basis, you also need to monitor the overall health of the system, right, in terms of the performance of the system and kind of audit records that are happening, the performance health checks. That's a constant process. And as a subscription model, you should be able to bill the customer based on the chosen subscription and pricing plan, and be able to track those invoices that are generated and ensure that the invoices are getting paid, and the whole payment collection life cycle is being monitored and tracked properly. And as a last step, ensure that customers are renewing the subscriptions and allow them mechanisms to upgrade and downgrade at their own flexibility. So this is a typical SaaS life cycle. And if you look at this, it's all surrounding the product that you are planning to build. And all of these capabilities are very important, particularly considering the scale that we just talked about, because when you have few customers, this doesn't matter probably. It can be done manually, but as you scale with more number of customers, dealing with this life cycle is going to be a very complex and hectic task, and hence you need to have the right platform in place to be able to sustain and deliver continuously. So considering the SaaS life cycle we just saw, there are three major stakeholders that comes into picture. One being the management team, which typically focus on ensuring they are able to monetize the whole product. They are able to strategically approach the subscriptions. Like I said, come up with innovative pricing plans, have multiple different pricing plans for different segment of customers, right? So their focus is going to be more on the monetization part of it. And there is a customer service team who deal with the day-to-day set of things, and they are responsible for the implementation of the software itself for a given customer. So their interest is going to be how quickly can I roll out the software to my customer, and how quickly can I accommodate the requests that are coming from my customers. Obviously, they are going to get a lot of tickets, a lot of requests on an ad hoc basis, and alongside with that, how can they monitor the performance of the system and the SaaS software and take proactive measures. And the third and the most important stakeholders are the team that is developing the solution itself. And they are concerned about how to build a scalable, secure, and reliable SaaS product. And when multiple developers are involved, how do we ensure the standardization of the deliverables that are coming out, how all the modules are consistently built, and all of this ideally in a faster go-to-market time frame. So some sort of an accelerated development is what their interest is going to be. So this is where Texelo comes into picture. Texelo is a framework that combines a lot of best practices that are followed in the SaaS industry, and it's packaged as a solution and made available. And some of these best practices is what we are going to be talking today, which could be applied in any of your projects as well. The ideas are pretty much reusable. Texelo as a solution is available in the form of libraries and APIs that could be easily integrated with any product, and it could be used in different scenarios. Could be used to build new SaaS products, or could be used to convert your existing single tenant to multi-tenant applications, or migrate your on-premise products to a SaaS model. So it predominantly consists of more than 30 modules, which addresses all the standard components that we just talked about, and it's readily available in an integratable fashion. And it's a completely cloud neutral solution, and it's could be deployed on any cloud. So Cello is aimed towards addressing those three areas we just saw. One, from a business management capability, being able to handle the subscription, billing, and recurring revenues. And two, have a flexible, automated way of doing most of the customer service operations. That way the load on the customer service team is less. And three, have a robust architecture and an accelerator which could help in developing applications faster, with all the required support for the non-functional requirements like scalability, security, and so on. So again, it's packaged to align with the three areas we just saw about. One, addressing the management team with powerful monetization tools and subscription tools. And customer service, like I mentioned, much of their day-to-day task is automated, so their load is greatly reduced. And the development team to take care of the accelerator and development of features. Let's quickly look into some of the challenges that exist in each of these areas before we get into the solution. So what kind of problems do even companies face? Why do we even have to think about these features? Right. So we'll start with the business management challenges. Now there is a huge challenge in terms of sales, just like in any other case. But in terms of SaaS, it's very critical to have as much shorter sales cycle because you need to get more customers. You cannot afford to spend a lot of time with these customers. And like I said, ideally you want more of a self-signing up kind of capability where users or customers can easily sign up and start using your software. So to that extent, you need to have a mechanism that allows customers to enroll themselves quickly. And many of these SaaS products have trial. So how do you ensure that customers who are using my trial can easily kind of continue using the software? Or how do I even get insights as to how a customer is feeling during their trial phase, right? So how do I even get to know how many people are getting converted, how many am I losing on the process of trial, right? So increasing the trial conversion rate is going to be one big challenge. And overall, keeping a check on my churn to ensure that the customers are happy with what they are using, and trying to get some analytics about that would be helpful for me to keep a check or tab on that. And in some SaaS businesses, you may want to consider a reseller, probably in the same geography or in a different geography. But then dealing with a reseller is again a different complexity, because you should be able to provide the same software, but then the reseller should have almost a lot of control to kind of resubscribe or probably provide subscription on behalf of the ISV to the end customers. So how do you facilitate that without complicating the whole setup and still have a proper track of it? Like I said, having different subscription models, which could be customer friendly by segment, and utilize some of the insights to upsell, to have my customers being able to choose the right package and upgrade it, and also have a cost-effective way of monetizing the subscriptions without spending a lot of operational time on that. So these are some of the best practices that could be followed to address these challenges. So like we discussed, the software that you have should have capability to allow customers to self-subscribe. So they should be able to sign up quickly and start using it. And to that extent, you should have support for trials so that they are able to use the software, experience the software, and once they are happy, they continue using it. And as they do it, it's very important that you get insights on the customer behavior and their usage, particularly when they are in trial. So for example, having something like the top 10 trial users, or what we call the hot trials, right? So that will kind of give you an indication as who are those set of customers who are extensively using the system, or probably they are more serious, and hence you could focus them more and try to convert them sooner. Similarly, there is also the cold ones, the opposite of hot, where they are not using the system as much as they want. So you may want to pay attention to them to find out what is causing their problem. Maybe they are stuck somewhere, probably they are requiring some hand-holding. So with a limited sales team, you'll be able to attack these hot and cold ones and try to move them up the sales life cycle. So to that extent, this customer behavior and usage analytics can be of great help. And some of the other things are involving being able to self-sign up with a credit card, being able to provide automatic invoices, keep track of the invoice status. So to the extent possible, all of this have to be automated, and that way the load on the support team is going to be very less. And also have a reseller role in the overall setup. That way you are able to offload the required privileges to the reseller, and the reseller should be more or less be able to operate it like a separate business, but you still get a holistic view of the overall product and the customers within the product. Right? So we call this pretty much like a hierarchy, where the ISV sits on the top, and then the resellers are beneath the ISVs. Resellers can further have more resellers as well, so it can go to N level. So these are some examples of different pricing models that could be potentially possible. For example, it could be a prepaid pricing that you may offer. In some cases, it could be a postpaid. In some cases, it could be a usage-based transaction that you may want to charge, or it could be a combination of both, a flat fee plus a usage cost. Like in this case, $25 flat plus you charge them $1 per transaction. Depending on the product, you could come out with some innovative ideas. So this is an example of some of the products and what could be a potential usage model. Like if it's a trading system, for example, it could be based on number of traders in the system, based on which you may come out with a innovative pricing. Similarly, if it's a supply chain management, it could be a percentage of the total value of transactions that's done through the system. If it's healthcare, it could be number of patients being managed through the system. So it's up to the ISV to think innovative and come out with any kind of a model. But the key is the subscription platform that you have and the software should be able to accommodate this kind of a model. For example, you should be able to track the usage in order to support this kind of a pricing and billing model. So that capability should be there inbuilt within the software. So that's the key. So these are some of the features that are offered within TechSolo, how we address some of these challenges. So we have a complete subscription, customer management, invoice and payment section. I'm not going to touch more about this because I'm going to show you a quick high-level demo as to how some of these could be structured, so that you get an idea as to how the products and the platform itself could be collaborating to make it successful. Moving on to customer service, a very important aspect to ensure that your customers are happy and the churn is less. So in fact, one of the research by Rockefeller Foundation indicates that 70% of them have left the company or the SaaS provider where it has nothing to do with the product itself. So they are probably more concerned about the quality of service they are getting rather than the software itself. So software as a service, both things are important, where the software and the service part, and to that extent customer service plays a very vital role. So some key challenges on that area. The major challenge is the implementation, where a lot of companies go through trouble because unlike the earlier on-premise models, implementations can go to 6 months, 1 year if it's very complex product, but SaaS you cannot afford to do that. Ideally, the implementation cycle should not be beyond a week for a customer. You should be able to roll them out and have them start using the software in a max time of 1 week. Right? So to that extent, you should be able to have the required setup in place to facilitate that. And also have a mechanism for self-servicing, because this will reduce to a great extent the load that's going to come on the support team. And again, given the revenue model being subscription based, you cannot have a large proportionate support team, right? So as your customers grow, you cannot keep adding more people to the support team. Rather, a small and lean support team should be able to service a wide range of customers. That should be the goal, and you should be able to facilitate that. And have constant communication and checkpoints with the customers, particularly in different stages. So how much proactively you are able to go back and address them. Even if the customer is using, out of 100 customers, how do you find out those customers that are not using the system are probably encountering more issues, more crashes, maybe more stoppages? So instead of you waiting for the customer to come back and complain about that, how can you find it out yourself and then being able to take proactive steps? And so those are some of the key challenges, and more importantly, how can I keep my customers happy, but at the same time, I should not be able to spend a lot to accomplish this. I should be able to accomplish this with a minimal team, with minimal efforts, and that's the key. So some of the best practices towards accomplishing that is automation. Plays a major role in this. Automation to the extent possible. Any task that could be accomplished without the need of manual intervention should be automated, right? So it could be as simple as to your customer, for example, if they want to take, let's say, a backup of their data, there should be a mechanism where the customer gets into a self-service portal and then take a backup of their own data, right, without even coming back to the support team, right? They want to make changes, some configuration changes, they want to make some settings changes, have them do it. Queries around their whole billing related stuff, how much I have used, how much is pending, all of that could be easily addressed through a self-service portal again, and have it made it readily available for the customer to view in the first place. So that could be the solution, the key solution. And also strategically, you should look at accomplishing the implementation through configuration rather than customization. So one of the mistakes that ISVs do in the process of winning particularly more customers is they try to take a shortcut and accomplish the implementation through customization. it could be easily done because you can just go change it and then give it only for the customer. Like we discussed, it's okay if you are having a handful of customers, but then imagine you start maintaining 4 or 5 versions of your software, and then that could grow to 10, 12 versions. Then there's going to be an operational nightmare where each of these versions have to be continuously maintained, monitored, the infrastructure cost of running each of these instances, any fixes you do has to be done so many times. So all of this could be really slowing down the growth of the company itself and could be detrimental in the overall progress and the overall vision of the company. So that's something that has to be taken care. So to that extent, the product you are developing should have a highly configurable framework through which potential changes from customer to customer could be addressed in each layer of the architecture. For example, if you take UI layers, there are certain things that could change at the UI level, right? For example, the logos could change, the theme could change, let's say to the extent the fields, some of the forms and the fields contained in it could also change, right? So that's another level of customization that could come in. The database level, some customers may want to have separate data and some are okay to be in a shared model, which we call that a multi-tenant database. So how do you facilitate this and meet both the customer needs? So all of this is possible only when you have the right architecture and the right framework that will allow you this kind of configurability. Right? And more importantly, tracking the customer behavior. There is a lot of analytics that has to be inbuilt in the product. That way you get very good insights about how each module is being consumed and which tenant is consuming how much of the system. All of this can throw very insightful information when you approach the customer. So these are some of the typical tasks that customer service team keeps encountering, asking for information around some ad hoc reports, setting changes. So those are the kind of things that should be made available in a self-servicing model. So these are some of the modules, and let me show you some of the things in the demo, like for example, this business process workflow, and how do you achieve some of the field level customizations. So we'll see some of that in a few minutes. Okay, coming into the engineering, which is one of the biggest areas. So the major challenges is it's very important to have a right architecture for the product because as we saw from the beginning, it is designed, the SaaS model is designed to operate for a lot of customers. So to that extent, the initial architecture on top of which the product is going to be built has to be really, really robust and tested and verified, right? So we see so many customers, they initially start off well, they go to 10 customers, 20 customers, and then they start experiencing problems, performance issues, and which puts the entire customer base under a big risk. And because everybody gets dissatisfied, and you know what happens in a SaaS model with the competition around, customers are going to start leaving. So it's very important to have a right architecture to take care of the non-functional requirements, which is what typically is missed out in the initial phases of the product design, right? Particularly with the scalability and security. The other challenge is the integration. So obviously, SaaS systems are not going to operate in silo. It's going to be very much talking to multiple systems, both sitting on-premise as well as systems that are provided by other providers or maybe in the cloud. So how easily can you do these integrations without spending too much of time? That's going to be a key. And the infrastructure cost. So how do I keep it minimal? How do I make use of the infrastructure so that I could serve a lot of customers with one setup, one solid setup of my software should be able to serve a wide range of customers, say 100 customers, 150 customers. And the data sharing is another big concern, particularly when you deal with slightly large companies. They are going to ask for a separate database. They don't like their data to be mixed with other customers. So you are probably have to figure out how to do that and being able to do it in a fashion that the security is also not compromised. Now, a few things like a few more fields. So obviously, customers, they always ask for changes. While they understand SaaS is not something that will exactly meet their requirements, but then there will be some inevitable changes that you may have to do. Could be addition of few fields, probably removal of few fields from some other form, and very importantly, the business process is something that can pretty much change from customer to customer. Let's say it's a simple HR system that you are building. Let's say the leave management module. The way the leave gets approved could be different from one company to another company. So, which means when you talk to the new lead, they may give you a business process which could contradict completely with what you have currently, and it could affect or could be totally different from what other companies are following. Now, like I said, you can one way to do is to customize it just for that customer and then deal with it, but that's not the right approach, and it's not a long-term solution. So how can you have uh, a mechanism to tackle this business process changes that are happening from customer to customer, right? So if you can externalize that business process and have the logic alone in the product, then it becomes much more easier from an operational standpoint. So those are some of the challenges involved. So some of the key things to overcome these challenges is one, have a scalable architecture at all layers. So you should be able to scale independently at each layer. For example, you should be able to scale the application layer. You should be able to scale the service layer. You should be able to have multiple databases if required, because database is something that could probably grow quickly. So how can I easily bring on another database and probably have a set of customers on that database so that their data is isolated, right? That's something that capability has to be there. OWASP is something that is very important to ensure the security aspects are taken care of, particularly for public-based SaaS systems, and have configurable workflows. This is something that's very interesting because the business process has to be externalized and being able to be configurable for a given customer without affecting the other customers. So that's going to be an important approach. So we'll see some of these in the demo as well. More importantly, we also have, as part of the TechSilo framework, what we call an accelerator, which could really speed up the way products are built, because it provides you, as you could see, the bottom portions. These are all the various non-functional requirements that are very, very essential and critical for any SaaS product. So, for example, we talked about the configurability. How do you have customizable workflows? How is the performance taken care of? How the scalability is achieved in each layer? And security is a big area, and there are so many things that are part of security. For example, each of your customers, when you approach them, they are going to ask for a single sign-on, right? Or they are going to ask that I have already a centralized authentication mechanism. So you have your product authenticate with my provider. So they could be using Azure, they could be using AWS, or it could be on-premised AD that they might be using. So your product should be ready in terms of being able to plug and play with these different providers and being able to achieve that authorization and authentication. Right. Similarly, multi-tenancy is another big complex architecture capability. So these are some of the things that are readily available. So when you start building either your application or the API, you also get all these capabilities alongside with that. So that way, things could be completed much faster. So having something like an accelerator can really help you, particularly when you're also dealing with multiple products, you're planning for multiple product lines. This could be of real use. This is what we talked about, being able to have the capability to have load balanced app servers, so that as the user load increases, you can simply add more servers. Or also the database layer, you should be able to shard the database. For example, I should be able to handle 1 to 100 customers with this database, and probably when I grow the 101 to 200, I could probably put another database, and so on. and whenever a customer asks me, I want my own database, I can put a dedicated database for that user. Now, all of this should happen in a completely abstracted manner, in the sense that the developer should not be worrying about this aspect at all. And that's the key of having the right framework. So developers should simply be consuming the data without even knowing where the data is coming from. That's ideally the way they should be operating, because that then gives you the flexibility to go and modify these things in even at runtime. So these are the various summed up features of the various modules that we just talked about, from the security, configurability, some of the engines and productivity utilities. And this is how the Cello framework also operates in a final mode. So you could have multiple products, or you could just have one product. So it could just be product A, or you may have multiple products. So in either case, work. So what we provide is also the Cello APIs through which the integration happens. So even if it's an existing product, we could integrate that with Cello through the APIs that we have. And the product itself could be on any technology. So it could be .NET, Java, PHP, doesn't matter, because it's going to be an API REST-based integration. So it doesn't actually matter. Now, you also get this portal, which is the very important administration screens, administration modules, where both your business management stakeholders and the customer service stakeholders who are dealing with the operational day-to-day stuff will be using to control and manage this whole SaaS application, the SaaS platform, right? And your users are going to be consuming their respective products depending on the subscription that they have chosen. Right? But then the integration itself could happen on a selective plug and play model. Like I said, there are 30 modules, so you could just plug and play only a few modules, and it's completely cloud neutral as well, and supports distributed deployment. And this whole setup, which is the portal, APIs, and the various products that we may have, can be together deployed on any target cloud environment. So that way, the providers have complete control of all the aspects, and from a security standpoint, also it becomes easy and simple to manage being co-located. All right. So with that, I'm going to get into a high-level demo of one of the sample applications that we have created. So this will give you an idea as to how the whole thing works. So I'm currently logging in as a super administrator. Super administrator is somebody sitting at the ISV level, the software provider level, who has all rights on the various administrative actions they can take. So this will take me to a dashboard where I could see the various modules, the various applications available. So if I have to quickly compare it with what we saw here, this is the portal I'm currently logging into, right? So this portal is what I'm seeing right now, and the risk administration and the HNS training are the two products that you see here as product A and product B. So on selecting this, it takes me to that particular product, and all the required single sign-on and authentication is already taken care because I'm right now inside the product. So let's take a quick look at the various modules that are available for the administrator. So as an ISV, you get to see all these menus that are available. Now let's quickly see where do they start with. Okay? So the first thing they do is once you have a new application coming up, you have to go and define the structure of the application, right? So here, risk administration is a sample application, is one of the products you can imagine that I am offering as an ISV to my customers. right? So once I know the application that I'm going to build, I have to structure my application in a logical way. That way it's easier for me to manage. So the risk administration product, SaaS product, has 4 modules. So I have defined that over here, and I can add more modules if need be. So this is how the portal gets to know about your application and the structure of your application, right? So in each module, I could have as many number of features I want. For example, incident management has just 1 feature. So here I have another feature for admin. And I could also have usages. Now this contract management has multiple features here. Now I could also have something called usages. So we talked about innovative pricing, right? So where you bill your customer based on the usage of software. So you could also define for a given module, how am I going to meter that particular module? So you could define anything that you would like to meter. It's up to the ISVs innovative thinking. All they need to do is just define that usage over here, so that the portal knows that this is something that it needs to keep track of. So as the application consumes this particular usage parameter, it reports through an API to the portal, and the portal keeps track of this usage. So that when the billing comes in, the billing uses this data to create the correct invoice. So this is how I define my structure. And once I do that, I can go ahead and publish a package. Now that I have, let's say, risk administration is now ready, now I can go and define the various packages like gold, platinum, silver, where each of these packages can have a mix and match of the modules that I have. So platinum obviously will have everything. Maybe silver might have only 1 or 2 modules. So it's up to you to again decide as to what you would like to offer to your customers. But as you define the package, you can also define the pricing for this package. So for example, this is a platinum package with a pricing of monthly. Billing frequency is monthly, right? I could also have different billing frequencies. Right? So I could have quarterly, semi-annual, annual. And I could also have the usage-based billing. So for example, here I'm using a usage called reported incidents, right? So this uses the number of incidents that are being recorded in the system as a measure to determine my pricing. So when I click view slabs, for example, I get to see the slabs that I have defined for this sample application. So from 1 to 50 incidents, I'm going to charge $20, right? From 51 to 100, I'm going to charge them 15, right? So you can define any mix and match combination, and there are multiple calculation types, whether 20 should be applied per incident or as a group from 1 to 50. Those are all determined by the calculation type. So this is how I create my package. Now once I have my package, then I can go ahead and create my tenants. Tenants are the customers. So I can go to my subscription and create a tenant. Now this is my tenant dashboard that the ISV admin gets to see. So there are 7 tenants so far and 0 in trial. So I also get to keep track of my trial. So these are the various tenants I have currently in the system. So it gives me a quick info about who they are, how long they've been a member of, what package they have taken, how many users are there, how many are online. Right? I get a quick snapshot of that customer. So I can go ahead and create a new customer, and I can specify their basic details, and then I can also specify the package that they would like to choose. So this is the service setting, is a place where I can go and activate the required services for them. So here I specify the billing cycle, and here I select the modules that they are willing to subscribe. So risk administration is the product they are planning to purchase, and within that they could pick the right package that they would like to use. So if they would like to use a gold or a platinum, I can select here. So it gives me all the basic details. Right? So this is how I enroll a new customer into the picture. Now with that, let me quickly also show you a view from a customer perspective. Now, so far we have been operating this portal from an ISV provider level. Now I'm going to log in as one of the customers administrator, right? So let's see how that view is going to be. So I'm going to log in as one of the admins using the same portal. So I have created a user. He is the tenant administrator of a particular portal. So once I log in, you'll notice that this is the logo of that particular customer who has logged in now, and you'll see the changes in the menus that this administrator sees. For example, app catalog is showing just manage package, whereas in the earlier case, this administrator was getting a lot more options, because now this administrator is only at a customer level, so he can only do things that are applicable at the customer level. So that's why he's not able to get options for creating new package and all. So he can only subscribe to a package that, or upgrade their package they have currently chosen. Right. So that's one thing. Now let's also view this from a regular user perspective, and let me also show you from an application point of view. Right. So now this is the URL of one of the applications we have built, which is the risk management application. So as a regular user, I'm not going to be worried about any administration. So as a user, I'm just trying to reach the application that I have subscribed to. So I try to log into that application. Now I'm going to log in as somebody for whom I have enabled a single sign-on, right? A SAML-based authentication. So I'm using this user Daniel Faraday. Now the moment I enter that user, I get to this particular sample application is configured for a single sign-on with Okta, which is an authentication provider. And I'm going to provide my password here. And once the sign-in is done successfully by Okta, it kind of redirects it back to the application, which is the risk management application. So if you look at initially we were in the application page, and then it immediately recognized that this customer has asked for a single sign-on with Okta. So the control transferred back to there, and on successful login, they are back. This application has come back to the risk management module. Right? So that's an example of a single sign-on. Let's quickly see some of the other capabilities that are available in this. For example, the workflow, which is one of the important things we wanted to see. Let's say this risk administration incident approval. So when the incident happens, right, somebody has to approve within the company. There is a business process involved. Now, like I said, you could either go ahead and do a hard coding development of it in the product, but then what we have done here is we have tried to externalize it in the form of a workflow. So I have this seller framework provides me a mechanism through which I can create these business processes. Now I'm trying to get into the workflow designer. So I see here a simple process. Of course, you can create any kind of complex process, but this is a pictorial representation of the various steps that are involved in my business process towards approving an incident, right? So there is some auto approval, there is a manual step. This yellow icon indicates a manual step, right? So this approve incident is a manual step here, and then this is an automatic step. So based on the incident type, I might decide that, let's say if it's a kind of a minor incident, I would like to go for an auto approval. Maybe it's a security type incident, then I want the security officer to manually approve it. So right, I can kind of determine what the process is. Now, tomorrow when a particular tenant comes in and says that, well, I want this to be changed, this is not how we work, then I can get into that particular tenant context and make the change. For example, right now I am at the overall super admin level. Now, let's say one of the customers, let's say Griffin Foods is a customer who is asking me this change. Now I select that particular tenant. Now, if you look at, I am in the context of Griffin, right? So the whole application is now changed. While still I am super admin, I am operating now under the context of Griffin Foods. So now if I go to workflow and make this change, Um, if I do edit, and any changes I do now will be applied only to Griffin's Food, and none of the other customers will be affected. So that's the power of being able to have a multi-tenant architecture cutting across all the modules that you have. So with that, there is also the users, complete user management with all standard features for locking, unlocking, right? So I get to see only 2 users because right now I'm in the Griffin's login. I could also define what their roles are. For example, this particular person is playing the role of the incident manager, right? So I can go ahead and define what incident manager can do and cannot do for Griffin's Foods. I'm still under the context of Griffin's Foods. Now, this is the incident reporter is one of the roles I have. So I can go here and control the privileges that are applicable for that particular role, incident reporter. Sorry about that, there's a small disconnect. So just a few more minutes, I'm going to be opening up for questions. So this is how we'll be able to control the privileges at a particular tenant level. And there is also the usage related analytics we talked about. So this kind of gives me a real-time health view about the application performance, right? So it gives me the load experienced by the application, not just the infrastructure load, but more in terms of the software performance itself in terms of its. We have a similar one at the database layer as well. Now I could also get to see a complete audit stats of all the requests that have come in. And let's say I want to see it by application, I can filter it by application. Now I can further drill down by application, by tenant, right? For example, if Griffin Foods is complaining about a performance issue, then I can go ahead and find out what is causing that issue. So those are some of the things that I could accomplish at analytics level. So this kind of shows me all the risk administration, and then I can further filter it down by Griffins. Now I can exactly see the response times that Griffins has been experiencing in the last few minutes, right? And I can also filter it by things that are taking more than, let's say, 3 seconds. So I get to see, okay, these are some of the things that are taking more time. So I can instantly find out which place is creating the problem and maybe pass it on to the development team to look into it and fix it immediately. So this is how you can be proactive in terms of addressing the customer's issues even before they're raising it. All right, so that brings us to the end of this particular session. We have a few minutes left, and we'll be happy to address any questions. Yes, as information, we'll be sharing this PPT to all the people who have registered for this webinar, and we'll also share a link to the recording of this webinar so that you can take a look at it at a later point in time as well. Okay, I started getting a few questions. Let me start taking it up. How much time does it typically take to build a framework, something like this? Now, like I said, the one that we have now is very extensive. It's more than 30 modules. So it's been there probably for 5-6 years. So we are talking about a very comprehensive framework. It can really take a lot of time, and could take a lot of senior minds to actually build it. You need a lot more architects to build it. But yeah, it is going to be taking a lot of time, and from what we find, the focus should be on the product, not on the underlying things that are not going to be critical for the SaaS ISVs. The other question I have is what kind of security measures are taken into consideration. Now, like I said, the security plays a very important role. So to that extent, we strongly recommend doing a complete vulnerability assessment. In fact, this framework has gone through the highest criticality level 5, and we use a product called Veraco to perform a complete vulnerability assessment, and that ensures that the framework is safe and it's tested for any loopholes, potential loopholes. And once the application is built, we recommend the application also goes through a similar kind of an assessment. That way you can ensure that there are absolutely no gaps, security gaps. I think with that, we have pretty much reached the end time for this webinar. Once again, thanks everyone for taking the time to be here in this webinar. And like I said, we'll be sharing this presentation along with a link to this video. And look forward to see you all again in the next webinar. Have a great day. Bye.